Welcome back. All right, so the Florida Panthers, Stanley Cup champions, the first time ever. And as I mentioned last night in the Stanley Cup Game 7 review, it is another team I've watched win their first Stanley Cup, and it's enjoyable to watch a team win their first Stanley Cup, as it was when Vegas won their first last year, when St. Louis won their first in 2019, Washington won their first in 2018. It's been quite the time. Now, for Florida to win the Stanley Cup, they beat Tampa Bay in 5, then they beat Boston in 6, they beat the Rangers in 6, and then they beat Edmonton in 7. Now, it took 3 games, right? 3 losses, and then that fourth time, they finally get it done. And Aaron Ekblad, after the game last night, admitting, yeah, I was getting to them. And Game 6 was the one that really bothered them. But Game 6 also seems to have been the one that finally snapped them back, got them back into it, and here we are. So Bill Zito is the general manager. He's intense. Those are that's a guy that I wouldn't want to have to look at during negotiations. Maybe part of the reason why the Florida Panthers are able to keep cap hits reasonable for most of their players is, Zito could just kind of stare him down, couldn't he? Well, I'm not going to accept that. I'm not. All right. No, stop staring at me, Bill. The coach, of course, Paul Maurice. One of the good stories of the Florida Panthers winning the Stanley Cup is seeing Paul Maurice holding up the Stanley Cup. It was emotional to see that, and it's great to see that. The Florida Panthers, I feel like, earned this. They went through it. They were the President's Trophy winners in 2021-2022. So when we talk about the President's Trophy curse, it's important to note how many teams win the President's Trophy. They lose in the playoffs, but in upcoming seasons, many of them end up winning the Stanley Cup. And the latest example being Florida. Now, the last time they missed the playoffs was 2019. And having just done the Edmonton video, it's kind of weird because they both missed the playoffs in 2019. And they both lost the qualifying round in 2020. Florida lost that against the Islanders. And I was really rooting for Florida. And the funny thing is, it was 2020, about 4 years ago, right? And I was thinking to myself in that point in time, you know what? Maybe Florida's just not meant to win. Maybe they're not meant to win come playoff time. They're not that team. Now, they've been first in their division 2 of the last 3 seasons. And they've put up some really, really good regular season numbers as a team. And one thing we talked about, and it doesn't feel like it's that long ago, is the whole, for Florida, they're not getting attendance, they're not making money, this is a team that's in trouble. What, 5-6 years ago we were talking about that? Well, their arena lease is now until 2028, and the success on ice has helped. I've seen the argument that, people are coming out now, but when this team gets bad, fans are going to tune out. Did we say that about Chicago? Because Chicago, attendance was bad the year before they draft Bedard. And I didn't see anybody saying, oh, look at Chicago. Those fans are... Now, I'm not saying there aren't any, but it is weird how nobody said, well, Chicago's clearly not a hockey market. Look at this, all these empty seats. It is strange. Like Buffalo. Buffalo has been tons of empty seats, and I haven't seen anybody say Buffalo's not a hockey market. It is always going to be part of the conversation. I'm just going to warn Florida fans now that anytime empty seats are spotted, there's going to be those people who go, see, not a hockey market. But I think that the fact that the teams now run properly is part of the reason why fans are showing up. This is a team that was run basically in an incompetent fashion for a very long time. They weren't able to get over the hump. Sometimes they had a good team that just maybe wasn't coached very well. They might have had a good offense, not a good defense, and vice versa. Now they're the Stanley Cup champions, and it's about maintaining that level of excellence, right? We've seen Tampa Bay stay in contention, near contention, and be pretty damn good for over a decade. They did miss the playoffs once in there, but yeah, Florida now has to kind of emulate that, right? So their leading scorer this year for the team that went 52, 24, and 6 for 110 points and 5th overall. They were only 4 points back of the President's Trophy as well. 82 games for Reinhart, 57 goals, 37 assists, 94 points. In the playoffs, much quieter comparatively. 24 games, 10 goals, 6 assists, 16 points. And the thing that's really interesting about Florida and looking at their run is there's nobody that wows you with the goals they put up. It's hard to shut one guy down on Florida. Tkachuk in the regular season, 80 games, 26 goals, 62 assists, 88 points. In the playoffs, 24 games, 6 goals, 16 assists, 22 points. The thing that stands out with Tkachuk is the goal scoring wasn't Tkachuk-like, but who cares? They won the Stanley Cup. So sometimes when players maybe aren't, and I don't want to say selfish because I don't see it as just being selfish. Advanced stats showed Tkachuk should have had more goals than he did. But sometimes distributing the puck around and not worrying as much about the goals, sometimes that helps for more success in the playoffs. Barkov, 73 games, 23 goals, 57 assists, 80 points. In the playoffs, 8 goals, 14 assists, 22 points in 24 games. And Barkov's job every series was shut down the absolute best players on the other team, and he did a pretty good job of that. I know I saw like, his plus minus was a -1. Yeah, he was always against the best players. So I have no problem with that plus minus considering some of the competition he was up against. Carter Verhaeghe had a rough final until last night's Game 7, and he definitely made do. In the regular season, 76 games, 34 goals, 38 assists, 72 points. In the playoffs, 24 games, 11 goals, 10 assists, and 21 points. So overall, his playoff numbers are really good. Again, he had a rough final until last night's game, but when you win in Game 7, all's forgiven. Sam Bennett, controversial run for Sam Bennett. 69 games during the regular season, 20 goals, 21 assists, 41 points. I'm sure there's still some Bruins fans that are not going to be happy to hear his name, but 19 games in the playoffs, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points. Bennett is another one of those players who rides the line, right? And Sam Bennett, and I called this years ago when he was playing in Calgary, playoff Sam Bennett is something else. And yeah, there's some Flames that won Stanley Cups last night. There's some Sabres that won Stanley Cups last night. I don't think that makes Flames and Sabres fans feel better. Evan Rodriguez, 80 games, 12 goals, 27 assists, 39 points. In the playoffs, 24 games, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. Pretty sure he played for Buffalo too. Rodriguez is like one of the ultimate up and down the lineup type guys. He can play on your top line here and there. If you want him on your fourth line, he can help you there too. There really isn't a bad spot for Rodriguez in the lineup. Gustav Forsling had quite the run in the playoffs and the regular season. 79 games in the regular season, 10 goals, 29 assists, 39 points. In the playoffs, 24 games, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points. Forsling, one of the best defensemen in the league? Sure. I've seen people saying, he should be in for the Norris. I understand why he's not top 3 for the Norris. I'll be interested when the voting comes out to see if Forsling got any first place votes, second place, or third place, and what the numbers are going to look like. But next season, I think more eyes are going to be on Forsling. Keep in mind that Florida's one of those teams that does tend to get a lot less attention than a lot of the others. So maybe they'll get more attention now as defending Stanley Cup champions than they got in previous seasons. Bobrovsky, a lot of attention on him, of course, in his contract. 36-17-4 record, .915 save percentage during the regular season. In the playoffs, 16-8 and a .906 save percentage. And his save percentage, I thought was not indicative of his play through the first 2 rounds. I thought he was excellent. And in the final, the Oilers lit him up until they didn't. So games 4 through 6, they lit him up. Game 7, nope. Part of that is the Florida Panthers blocking. Part of it, too, is the fact that if the shot's low, Bobrovsky's saving it. He's not allowing those. I think there was 1 5-hole goal in the entire playoffs on him. That's it. So, Bobrovsky is the real deal, and now he has a Stanley Cup ring. He's going to the Hall of Fame. So, I don't think any of us should be surprised when he ends up in the Hall of Fame, because that's where he's going. But this is a team that does have some issues when it comes to re-signing players. Now, they have almost $20 million in cap space. So, $19,516,666. I cannot pretend that by saying that they're going to have issues with signing players that I mean it's money-wise. I just mean there's a lot of veterans here, and so it's a matter of which guys you're going to keep, which guys you're going to let go, and trying to repeat. Because I think if you're a GM, if you're Bill Zito, you feel this, I won the Stanley Cup, you want that feeling again. Reinhart leads headlines there, UFA, but I don't think he's going to be a UFA. I don't think he's going to go to market on Monday. I think Florida's going to find a way to keep him, and I think he'll go with a team-friendly contract. I don't think Reinhart scores 50 next year, but he should score 40. He should still be around a point per game, and I don't expect him to be greedy in negotiations. I think he understands Florida's a perfect spot for him. Cousins, Lomberg, Opozo. Opozo gets his Stanley Cup. We'll see if this is the end for him. I actually saw a graphic with him holding up a cup, and I thought, did he retire today? But no, that was not the case. Stenlund, Tarasenko, Ekman Larson, Kulikov, Montour, and Stolars all going to market. Stolars, I think, has done a really good job this year of improving his standing in the NHL, and I think he's going to probably cash in on July the 1st. which is good because I think Stolarz was good in Anaheim before this. So it's nice to see him get a Stanley Cup ring as well as all the other guys on the list here, right? Then your restricted free agents, you got Lundell. I think it's in their best interest to try to find a way to get Lundell signed for at least 4 years, if not just a huge long-term deal. Because as I've mentioned with him before, I see him as Barkov light. He does everything that Barkov does. He's not at Barkov's level, because who is? But he's a very useful player. He's good at both ends of the ice, and I think there's more offense than what we've seen so far from him. Mahura's the other restricted free agent. Well, he was an extra throughout the playoffs. So they're not in a terrible position. I think getting Lundell signs important, getting Reinhart signs important. The thing is, let's just say Reinhart gets $8 million a year, and Lundell gets, say, $3 million a year. And I'm saying that knowing they could get more. You're down to $8.5 million in cap space if you talk them into those cap hits, and you still got to sign players. If you're not going to sign any of these players to come back, you still have to sign replacements. And if players come up from the minors to replace them, they're still going to cost you a minimum of $775,000 per player on the cap. So there's a lot of work to be done by the Florida Panthers this summer. But could they repeat? Yeah. This is a team that doesn't revolve around one player. Barkov's fantastic. Barkov's an excellent two-way forward, but it's not all Barkov. And I think that makes it tougher to shut them down. And I think it makes them maybe a bit of an easier bet when it comes to could they repeat. So for the Florida Panthers, they're not going to sneak up on anybody anymore. Not that they should have after they won the President's Trophy in 2021-2022. But now, as defending Stanley Cup champions, they're going to get everybody's A game on any given night. Because it's going to be, hey, the Cup champs are here. Let's go out and beat them and show what we can do. So it's going to be an interesting season upcoming. And that season starts 103 days from today. So while that sounds like a long time, with the amount of punishment these guys took and dished out in the playoffs, and as I've said too, when you're dishing out all those hits, you might get a little shaken up yourself. I don't know how healthy and how many players are going to exactly be at 100%. Once we start next season, there will probably be some guys who are a little bit down. And then the other letdown that can happen with teams that have won a Stanley Cup is it's difficult to get up for a game in October. So if Florida has, say, like a West Coast road trip to start the season, something like that, it's going to be really difficult to get up for a game in Anaheim, San Jose, and play those early season games. So we sometimes see that Cup hangover, and that's definitely part of it. So we'll see how this season unfolds upcoming. But at the very least, they've won a Stanley Cup. So if you're a Florida fan, congratulations. And we'll see whether or not they can win another one. The state of Florida all of a sudden is a place where the Stanley Cup kind of feels like it's at home. With 2 championships for Tampa Bay in 2020 and 2021. And now in 2024, it's Florida's turn. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding the Florida Panthers. What do you think they should do in the offseason? Let's just say Reinhart goes to market. Where do they look if Reinhart goes to market? And I say that knowing that by the time this video goes live on the channel, Reinhart may very well be signed already to an extension. So we'll see how it goes. I had thought about delaying the Edmonton and Florida videos until after the draft maybe, but I don't think that's going to work because there's going to be a lot of changes between now and then anyways, in all likelihood. And so I felt like, yeah, no, today's the day. Get these done. And get feedback from people on what they think Florida might do. Let me know your thoughts. I didn't worry about the draft picks because they just won the Stanley Cup, so not really any concern when it comes to draft picks. It's a concern of, so how do you get back and win it again? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.